Hello everyone and welcome to rural Germany. In this video we are going to finish up the town of Weissenburg and we are going to add some farm fields around it to just give it a more finished look. In the next episode we will focus on more farmland and nature around the town to really give the entire area a finished look. So as you can see, we start off this video with a few houses that are built against the train tracks. After that we are going to do one more block of houses and then we're going to do some farm fields. Obviously we expand the sound barriers to over here because otherwise there would be a little bit too much noise pollution for the residents. Of course it's not ideal to live here, but still it's better with a sound barrier than without. We also lowered the terrain next to the train tracks and added a wall, just like we did in other parts of the town. And I think it opens up for some nice garden detailing without just having a very big slope leading to the train tracks, which would not be pleasant for the residents. And as always, it's time for some garden detailing. Not too long this time because there just isn't a lot of garden space to detail, but I'll be right back and enjoy the time lapse. It's time to build the second and last block of today's video, which is slightly bigger than the first one. Because it is still part of the town though, we are going to build it in a similar style as we did in the rest of the town, which means first placing the houses, then adding fences and hedges to mark off the gardens, and then adding some garages of course, but mainly detailing those gardens with a variety of props and trees and basically making sure that nothing stays empty and it looks as realistic as possible. I also wanted to incorporate the process of the building slowly being less dense the more you get away from the city center, so you can see that on the part of this block that is closer to the town center, the houses are closer together than on the far end. Another funny thing to mention about this block is that usually houses in this region don't or barely have any front gardens. But to change things up, I added one house that has a front garden with the idea of it being a newly built house that the owner wanted to have a front garden, just as a little variation on the normal stuff that I'm doing. I just like to do that sometimes. So yeah, pay attention for the house in the time lapse and then I'll be right back. Now that block is done, it's time to go to the farm fields. We are going to be using the same technique as last episode, which would have been a new technique if I hadn't split up the extra large episode into 2 separate episodes, which this is the second part of. But in case you missed it, in the last episode of rural Germany, this technique basically works the following way. I place down a farming decal and then use procedural objects to edit the edges in case there's a road that is bending a different way than the decal is. The only issue with this is that the decals that are usually terrain conforming are no longer terrain conforming after converting them into a PO, which means that it is kind of a struggle to get them exactly right. We can't just elevate them up because then from a first person look it would look pretty weird. So it is a bit of a mix of rotating and moving up and just a little struggle, especially with this farm field because there is a pretty big height difference in this field. That is why later on you will see me use normal decals in this farm field at the places where there's not a road close to it, because then there's no need to PO it, and because I don't want to change the color of this specific decal for this specific field, I can just let it unPO'd and you won't notice the difference. While we are building these farms, let's talk about the future of the series. As I said in the intro, the next episode will be focusing on nature and farming, but for the episodes after that, I really don't have a clear plan yet. Of course, we also have the second series Mother Plays Vanilla now, so I have a little bit more time to think, assuming I manage to keep up with the weekly uploads. I'll try to do that, but I'm not really sure because, for example, the last few weeks I was just really busy and not really motivated to do a lot of work for videos, etc. So that's why I had a small break, but I really hope to be back with videos now. As I say every episode, I know, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, back to the original topic. We have a few options what we can do with this series. Option 1 is to basically spread from this town, so start working in the next valley, build some rural towns there. Then I mean smaller towns, because I think we've had enough of these bigger towns for a while now, because I want to keep variation in the series. Or we can go to a completely different area on the map and build something there. So just let me know your ideas and maybe I'll implement a few of them. What I want to do though is do something with highways again, because it's been a while since we did something with highways and we've been really focusing on towns and things that surround the towns. So I think it might be funny to watch something completely different. Just for a few episodes, then we can switch back to different kinds of builds again, just to keep some variation in the series. This farm field over here is an interesting one, because it is one of the few farm fields around this town that are completely flat, which makes it a very interesting location for new houses. That is also a pretty big discussion in the town at the moment between the leaders of the municipality and the owner of this little piece of land, because the leaders of the municipality want to build houses on his field, but he doesn't want to sell it because it is excellent farming ground. Anyways, before we go on, let's talk about the things that happened in the last time-lapse without voiceover. As you saw, we added a second farm field, which we did end up recoloring to a more realistic looking color in my opinion, and then we added a very big grass field with a few groups of trees on it. This is also something that happens a lot in the Eifel region because there are a lot of stones in the ground and it's not the most suitable area for farming, at least some parts, which is why there's a lot of fields where there's just grass growing and then they mow it at some point, and that is basically the entire use of that field. Although this might not be the best example of a field that actively gets mowed because the grass is pretty high and there's just trees randomly growing in the field. But I definitely want to add more of these grass fields here and there in the region. That said, there is a lot of fields in the Eifel region that are suitable for farming and that are also used for farming, which is why I am basically trying to create a mix of fields that are more used for grass plantation and that are used for growing crops. For the last thing of this episode, we are building a little corner over here, which is just a dirt patch, mud patch, with a few bushes on it. It could be used as a parking place for tourists that want to start their walking trip over here. It could be used for a tractor that wants to turn around, but for the rest it is a pretty abandoned little thing and nobody really cares about it. Anyways, that is it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, and again, I'm sorry for the long break. I hope to be back with semi-weekly uploads at least, maybe weekly uploads, no promises though. Thank you to my patrons, which will of course be listed in the final cinematic. And then I have one more thing to say, and that is thank you for watching and enjoy the cinematics.